The mockery. The Great Assembly. The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the void like a jeweled crown, its crystalline spires stretching across 50 kilometers of empty space. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its countless ports, their designs as varied as the species that built them. Today, the Galactic Trade Assembly was meeting for the first time in 20 standard years, and everyone had come to witness something unprecedented. Earth was finally joining the galactic community. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Assembly's Grand Chamber, her simple blue uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial robes and biomechanical augmentations worn by the alien delegates around her. She was 43 years old, with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes, but her posture was straight and confident. Behind her, a holographic display showed Earth's newest creation floating in space. The ship looked like something built in a scrapyard. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, with visible weld marks and uneven surfaces. Strange protrusions jutted out at odd angles, and the whole thing was held together by what appeared to be industrial-grade cables and magnetic clamps. It was roughly the size of a cruiser, but it moved with the awkward grace of a cargo hauler. "This is Aegis," Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "Earth's contribution to galactic defense technology." The chamber erupted in a sound that might have been laughter if it came from human throats. Instead, it was a cacophony of clicks, growls, harmonic resonances, and synthetic vocal patterns that somehow conveyed the same universal message: amusement. War Commander Zethful of the Korthic Empire rose from his seat, his 7-foot frame covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid metal. His species looked like humans might if they had been designed by someone who had only heard humans described secondhand. Too tall, too angular, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with an inner fire. "Honored Assembly," Zethful's voice rumbled through the translation system. "Surely this is some form of jest. The humans present us with what appears to be salvaged debris, and call it a warship." More laughter echoed through the chamber. The crystalline Vex delegation, beams of living mineral who communicated through harmonic vibrations, created a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. The Helix Collective, part organic and part machine, buzzed with electronic static that somehow conveyed derision. Chen remained perfectly still, her expression neutral. She had expected this reaction. "The design philosophy behind Aegis is different from traditional galactic standards," she said calmly. "We believe function should take precedence over form." "Function?" Zethful laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "What function could such a crude assemblage possibly serve? Our scout ships could disable it with their point defense systems." The Helix Collective spokesperson, a being that was half flesh and half circuitry, spoke in a voice like a chorus of computers. "Analysis confirms primitive construction. Material composition suggests scavenged components. Threat assessment: negligible." Chen's jaw tightened slightly, but she maintained her composure. "Appearances can be deceiving, honored delegates. Perhaps a demonstration would be more convincing than words." The chamber fell silent. Zethful's 4 arms crossed in what was clearly a gesture of contempt. "You propose to demonstrate this? Aegis, against what exactly? A training drone? A cargo pod? Against whatever the Assembly deems appropriate," Chen replied. The silence stretched longer. Finally, Prime Mediator Veltar, an ancient being whose species had founded the Trade Assembly millennia ago, spoke from the central podium. Their voice was like whispers in a vast library. "The human proposal is noted. However, before any such demonstration, the Assembly must first determine Earth's classification within the galactic hierarchy." Chen's heart sank. She knew what was coming. Given the primitive nature of human technology, as evidenced by this Aegis, the Assembly votes to classify Earth as a protected primitive species, Level 7. Humans will be granted observer status in the Assembly, but may not participate in military or technological exchanges until they demonstrate advancement to Level 5 or higher. The vote was swift and unanimous. Every delegate in the chamber raised their hand, tentacle or energy field in agreement. Earth was being dismissed as a backwater world of barely civilized apes. Chen felt the weight of her species' future settling on her shoulders. 50 years ago, Earth had received the first galactic contact signals. 50 years of preparation, of building toward this moment, and now her people were being patted on the head and told to sit in the corner with the other children. But she wasn't done yet. "Honored mediator," she said, her voice cutting through the self-satisfied murmuring of the delegates, "I formally request the right of proving combat." The chamber went dead silent. Even the ambient hum of the station's life support systems seemed to pause. The right of proving combat was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked and even more rarely successful. It allowed any species to challenge their classification through direct military confrontation. If they won, they would be immediately elevated to level 5 status. If they lost, well, historically, species that lost proving combat didn't tend to remain members of the assembly for very long. Prime Mediator Veltar's ancient eyes fixed on Chen. "Human ambassador, do you understand what you are requesting? Proving combat is not a simulation or a drill. It is actual warfare, with actual casualties. Your species could be ejected from the assembly entirely if you fail." "I understand completely," Chen replied, "and I accept those terms." Zethvol stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "This is madness. You would risk your species' future on that pile of scrap metal." Chen turned to face him directly. "I would risk it on human ingenuity, determination, and the belief that we belong among the stars just as much as any other species in this chamber." For a moment, Zethvol looked almost impressed. Then his expression hardened. "Very well. The Korthic Empire will provide the opposition force for your proving combat. I will personally lead our finest ships against your Aegis." The Helix Collective buzzed with electronic excitement. "Combat parameters request: fleet engagement or single ship duel." Chen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "The choice is yours, War Commander. Bring as many ships as you feel necessary to defeat one crude human prototype." Zethvol's eyes blazed. 12 ships, my elite Dominator fleet, each one capable of reducing a moon to asteroid dust." "Acceptable," Chen replied. Prime Mediator Veltar raised a crystalline appendage. "The proving combat will commence in 72 standard hours in the neutral void sector. Observer ships from all assembly member species are welcome to witness." As the delegates filed out of the chamber, chattering excitedly about the upcoming spectacle, Shen remained standing before the holographic display of Aegis. The ship looked even more pathetic now, surrounded by images of sleek Korthic warships that had been pulled up for comparison. A junior aide approached her nervously. "Ambassador, forgive me, but are you certain about this? The Korthic fleet has never been defeated in open combat." Chen studied the hologram, noting details that the alien delegates had missed. The seemingly random protrusions, the odd angles of the hull sections, the unusual placement of what appeared to be sensor arrays. "They've never faced humans before," she said quietly. "They have no idea what we're capable of when we're fighting for our survival." The aide looked unconvinced. "But Aegis is just one ship, and not even a particularly impressive one." Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "That's what they're supposed to think." Preparation for war. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. News of the proving combat spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Betting pools opened on dozens of worlds, with odds running heavily against Earth. Most gamblers were simply wagering on how quickly the humans would be destroyed. Aboard Aegis, Captain Marcus Rivera went through his final systems checks. Rivera was a veteran of Earth's Solar Defense Force, with 20 years of experience fighting pirates and corporate mercenaries in the outer system. He was compact and weathered, with the kind of calm competence that came from surviving countless battles. "Engineering report," he called out to his crew of 15. "All systems nominal, Captain. came the reply from Chief Engineer Lisa Park, a brilliant woman who had helped design Aegis from the ground up. Quantum entanglement network is stable, adaptive AI is online, and all modules are showing green across the board. Rivera nodded. The crew understood what they were facing. This wasn't just about winning a single battle, it was about proving that humanity deserved a place among the stars. They had trained for this moment for 5 years, running simulations and war games against every known alien ship design. But the Korthak Dominator fleet was something else entirely. Intelligence reports described the Korthak ships as works of art and engineering perfection. Each vessel was a kilometer long, armed with plasma cannons that could melt through conventional armor like butter, and shielded by energy barriers that had never been breached in recorded combat. Their crews were genetically enhanced warriors who had been bred for space combat across dozens of generations. Against this, Earth was sending what appeared to be a jury-rigged mining vessel. The deception was perfect. Captain, Communications Officer Janet Wu called from her station. We're receiving final transmission from Earth. Priority Alpha. Rivera accepted the transmission privately. Fleet Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on his personal screen. Marcus, you know what's riding on this. Not just Earth's membership in the Assembly, but our entire future as a spacefaring species. If we fail here, we'll be quarantined to our own system for the next 1,000 years. Understood, Admiral. Aegis is ready. Harrison's expression was grim. The Korthak don't know about our adaptive technology. They don't know about the modular system. They certainly don't know about the swarm protocols. Use that advantage. Will do, sir. And Marcus, show them what humans can do when we're cornered. The transmission ended, leaving Rivera alone with the weight of his species' future. Part 2. The Annihilation. The Void Sector. The Void Sector was a region of space between star systems, chosen for military engagements because it was empty of planets, asteroids, or anything else that might complicate the battle. It was the perfect arena for ship-to-ship combat, with nothing but vacuum and starlight to witness the outcome. 12 Korthak warships hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and deadly, bristling with weapon ports and sensor arrays. They moved with the fluid grace of predators, maintaining precise spacing and synchronized movements that spoke of countless hours of drill and training. War Commander Zethvil stood on the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable victory, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet was the pride of the Korthak Empire, veterans of 30 successful campaigns against primitive species who had dared to challenge the established order. Enemy vessel approaching. War Commander, his tactical officer reported. Single ship matching the profile of the human prototype. Zethval activated the main viewer, and there it was, Aegis, looking even more pathetic against the backdrop of space. The ship limped toward them at a fraction of the speed his own vessels were capable of, its mismatched hull sections and obvious repair patches making it look like a derelict that had been hastily pressed into service. "This is their champion," Zethvil muttered. "I almost feel sorry for them." Around the perimeter of the battle zone, observer ships from dozens of species maintained a respectful distance. The Helix Collective had sent a massive data collection vessel, its sensors recording every detail of the engagement for later analysis. The crystalline Vex had positioned a harmonic resonance ship to monitor the combat through sound and vibration. Even the normally reclusive quantum architects had sent a probe to witness what they expected to be a very short battle. Aboard Aegis, Captain Rivera sat in his command chair, apparently unconcerned by the overwhelming odds. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, each one a hand-picked specialist who had trained for this exact scenario. "Range to enemy fleet?" Rivera asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Tactical Officer Sarah Kim reported. "They're maintaining standard battle formation, weapons charged but not locked." "They're playing with us," Engineer Park observed from her position. letting us get close enough to make this look like a fair fight. Rivera's smile was cold. Perfect. Maintain current heading and speed. Look as pathetic as possible. On the Korthek flagship, Zethval was receiving reports from his fleet commanders. Each captain was eager to be the one to deliver the killing blow, to be remembered as the warrior who ended the human threat. War Commander, his communications officer called. The human ship is hailing us. Put it through. Captain Rivera's image appeared on the main screen, his expression calm and professional. War Commander Zethval, I am Captain Marcus Rivera of the Earth ship Aegis. Are you prepared to begin the engagement? Zethval laughed. Human, I almost respect your courage. Almost. But courage without power is merely stupidity. I will give you one final chance to withdraw and save your species the embarrassment of utter defeat. Rivera's expression didn't change. Thank you for the offer, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline. Shall we begin? As you wish. Try to make this interesting. The transmission ended, and Zethval turned to his tactical officer. All ships, weapons free. Target the human vessel's engines first. Let's disable them and draw this out. Make them understand their place in the universe. The Korthek fleet moved like a school of metallic fish, their formations flowing and shifting with predatory grace. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, and energy shields flickered to full strength. Aegis continued its slow, steady approach, seemingly oblivious to the doom bearing down upon it. 30,000 kilometers, Kim reported. 20,000. 10,000. They're targeting our engines, just as predicted. Rivera leaned forward in his chair. All hands, prepare for Phase 1. Remember, we need to look vulnerable. The first salvo from the Korthek fleet lit up space like a miniature star. Dozens of plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles streaked toward Aegis, more than enough firepower to vaporize a conventional ship. Aegis staggered under the impact, its hull sections seeming to buckle and separate. Explosions bloomed along its length, and debris scattered into space. The ship's forward momentum slowed dramatically, and its energy signature began fluctuating wildly. Direct hits on multiple sections. The Korthek tactical officer reported. Enemy vessel appears to be breaking apart. Zethval nodded with satisfaction. It was proceeding exactly as he had expected. The human ship was tough enough to survive the first salvo, but it was clearly crippled. Now they could take their time and dissect it piece by piece. But something was wrong. The debris field around Aegis wasn't expanding randomly, as it should if the ship were actually breaking apart. Instead, the scattered pieces seemed to be moving with purpose, spreading out in a careful pattern. War Commander, the tactical officer said, his voice uncertain. The debris it's maneuvering. Zethval stared at the display. What he had taken for wreckage was now clearly revealed as separate vessels. Dozens of them, each one roughly the size of a fighter, but moving with coordinated precision. It's not one ship, he breathed. It's a swarm. The truth hit him like a physical blow. Aegis had never been a single vessel at all. It was a collection of modular units, designed to appear as one ship until the moment of combat. Each module was fully functional, with its own engines, weapons, and AI-controlled navigation system. And now they were spreading out to attack from every angle at once. The swarm awakens. The Aegis modules moved like a school of mechanical fish, each one following its own tactical algorithm, while remaining coordinated with the whole. What had appeared to be battle damage was actually a carefully choreographed separation, each module breaking away at the optimal moment to maximize tactical advantage. Captain Rivera watched from the command module as his ship transformed from a single target into a distributed threat. This was the culmination of decades of human military innovation, born from the simple understanding that humans had never been the strongest or fastest species on their own planet. They had survived by being clever, by working together, and by using tools in ways their creators had never intended. All modules report ready, Park announced. Swarm protocol is active. Execute Phase 2, Rivera ordered. The Korthik fleet, still maintaining their perfect formation, suddenly found themselves surrounded. The Aegis modules had spread out in a three-dimensional sphere around them, each one presenting a small, fast-moving target that was nearly impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Impossible, Zethval snarled. All ships, engage the closest targets. Destroy them before they can coordinate an attack. But the humans had spent 5 years studying recorded Korthik battles, analyzing their tactics, their formations, their standard responses to various threats. Every move the alien fleet made had been anticipated and countered in advance. As the Korthik ships opened fire, the Aegis modules began their deadly dance. They moved in seemingly random patterns, but each movement was calculated to avoid incoming fire while positioning themselves for optimal attack angles. The modules were too small and too fast for the Korthik's heavy plasma cannons, which had been designed to fight other capital ships, not swarms of fighters. The first Korthik ship to fall was the Relentless Fury, a heavy cruiser that had been trying to target multiple modules simultaneously. 3 Aegis units had positioned themselves in the ship's blind spots, areas where its weapons couldn't track, and fired concentrated bursts of kinetic projectiles at its shield generators. The Korthik shields, designed to absorb massive amounts of energy, were vulnerable to sustained bombardment from multiple angles. The generators overloaded one by one, and then the modules switched to high-velocity projectiles that punched through the ship's armor like needles through cloth. Relentless Fury is down, Rivera's tactical officer reported. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, engines offline. The Korthik shields, designed to absorb massive amounts of energy, were vulnerable to sustained bombardment from multiple angles. The generators overloaded one by one, and then the modules switched to high-velocity projectiles that punched through the ship's armor like needles through cloth. Relentless Fury is down, Rivera's tactical officer reported. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12, engines offline. Zethval watched in horror as his perfectly ordered fleet began to come apart. The humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They weren't trying to overpower his ships with superior firepower or technology. Instead, they were using their smaller size and superior coordination to attack from angles and positions that his ships simply couldn't defend against. Break formation, he ordered. All ships, free maneuver. Engage targets of opportunity. It was exactly the wrong decision. The moment the Korthik fleet abandoned their coordinated formation, the Aegis modules pounced. They had been designed specifically to fight multiple opponents simultaneously, using advanced AI algorithms to track dozens of targets and coordinate attacks across the entire swarm. The inexorable will try to ram one of the modules, only to find that the human ship could accelerate and maneuver far more quickly than its bulky Korthik counterpart. The module slipped away from the ramming attempt and fired a spread of micro-missiles directly into the alien ship's engine bay. The dominant Pride attempted to use its point defense systems to create a protective barrier, but the Aegis modules simply adapted their attack patterns, using the ship's own defensive fire to mask their approach until they were too close to miss. One by one, the pride of the Korthik fleet was being systematically dismantled by what they had dismissed as primitive human technology. The final confrontation. War Commander Zethval stood alone on the bridge of the inevitable victory, the last functional ship in his fleet. Around him, the wreckage of 11 advanced warships drifted in space, their crews either dead or unconscious from life support failures. The Aegis modules had regrouped into a loose formation around his ship, but they weren't attacking. They were waiting. Captain Rivera's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional as always. War Commander, your fleet has been neutralized. I'm prepared to accept your surrender. Zethval's 4 hands clenched into fists. His species had never surrendered, never backed down from any challenge. The very concept was alien to his warrior culture. Never, he snarled. The Korthik Empire does not yield to primitives. I understand, Rivera replied. In that case, Prepare to join your fleet. The final attack was swift and precise. The Aegis modules moved in perfect synchronization, each one targeting a specific system on the Korthek flagship. Weapons, shields, engines, life support, everything was disabled simultaneously, leaving the great ship helpless and drifting. But they didn't destroy it. They didn't kill the crew. They simply rendered it harmless and waited. Aboard the observer ships, representatives from dozens of species watched in stunned silence as the human swarm regrouped around the disabled Korthek flagship. What they had witnessed was unprecedented in the history of the Galactic Assembly. A single primitive species had just defeated the most feared military force in known space, and they had done it without destroying a single enemy ship or taking a single life. The Helix Collective's data collection ship buzzed with electronic activity as its sensors recorded every detail of the engagement. The crystalline Vex resonated with harmonic frequencies that conveyed amazement and respect. Even the Quantum Architect's probe had extended additional sensor arrays to study the human tactical algorithms. Prime Mediator Veltar's voice echoed across all communication channels. The proving combat is concluded. Victory is awarded to the human representative. Earth's classification is hereby elevated to Level 5, with full membership privileges in the Galactic Assembly. Captain Rivera sat back in his command chair, feeling the weight of accomplishments settle over him. They had done it. Humanity had proven itself worthy of a place among the stars. But more than that, they had shown the galaxy something new. They had demonstrated that intelligence and cooperation could triumph over brute force, that innovation could overcome superior technology, and that the species that had crawled out of Earth's gravity had something unique to offer the wider universe. The Aegis modules began to reconnect, forming back into the appearance of a single ship. But now, every observer in the system understood that the humble-looking vessel was far more than it appeared. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, a testament to their refusal to accept limitations, and a warning to anyone who might underestimate them in the future. As the human ship began its journey back to Earth, carrying news of humanity's acceptance into the galactic community, the other species began to recalculate their assumptions about this new player on the cosmic stage. The humans had been laughed at, dismissed, and underestimated, but they had responded with characteristic determination and creativity, turning their apparent weaknesses into strengths and proving that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one you don't take seriously. In the depths of space, the wreckage of the Korthek fleet served as a reminder to the galaxy. Earth was no longer a primitive world to be protected and patronized. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, and they had done it on their own terms. The age of human expansion was about to begin.